So just take a space and lie down on one of the mats. We're going to start off with some relaxation. So just push the cushions to one side. And if you lie down on the mat with your knees drawn up and your knees resting against each other, that will be the most comfortable. So if you'd like to, your head should be pointing towards that wall and your feet towards that wall. So we're all lying in the same direction. And you're lying parallel, as it were, to the shrine. Okay? So everyone lying down on one of the mats. Head pointing that direction, feet pointing that way. And use one of the cushions to support your head. There's space down here if someone's looking for somewhere to lie down. So head pointing towards that wall, feet towards the door. Well, towards that wall. Not literally towards the door. Okay, so closing your eyes. And with your hands resting on your abdomen, making sure the fingers are not interlocked. I recommend drawing your knees up so that your knees can rest one against the other. That enables the back to relax further into the floor. And then just feel the breath coming into your body for a few moments. Feeling it coming in and going out. Feeling the calming effect of the breath on your mind. And then bring your attention up to your face. And just making sure that there are no points of tension anywhere in your face. If your brow is furrowed, then just let it go. Any tension around the eyes, again, allow them just to become soft. And the same with the mouth. If you notice that your jaw is clenched, let it drop. Just let it go. So the whole of your face becomes relaxed, free of tension. And allowing that same process to affect the crown of your head, the back of your head, down through your neck and throat, and into your shoulders. So if you're holding your shoulders, just let them go. Let them fall towards the floor. And then bringing your attention down through your arms, through the elbows, wrists, and your hands, right through to the tips of your fingers. And then once more bringing your attention up to your shoulders, the shoulder blades, allowing the shoulder blades to sink further and further into the floor. Allowing the chest to open. And just slowly taking note of any points of tension in your spine, in your upper back, your middle back, lower back. And just try to let your awareness of them dissolve them. Similarly with the abdomen, if you notice that your stomach is tight, well, just let it go. Let it relax. So that the whole of your upper body feels calm and relaxed. And allowing that sense of relaxation to drift further down through the pelvic area, into your thighs, down through your knees, into the shins, calf muscles, through your ankles, into your feet, to the tips of your toes. bringing your attention once more back onto the breath. Feeling the breath coming into your body and leaving your body. And when you're ready, opening your eyes. And then rolling over onto your left-hand side, facing the shrine. And pausing there for a moment. And when you're ready, coming up slowly and setting yourself up for the meditation. So, welcome to the class from me. In case you've not met me before, my name is David Mitra, and this evening we're going to do the mindfulness of breathing. So, I'm assuming you all know how to do that. I'm not going to say a word throughout the practice. I'm just going to let you get on with it. The only thing I would like to say is try, if you can, to sit perfectly still. It's not that difficult. Stillness really does help to build concentration when you're meditating. So if you can do that, just try and sit perfectly still. I shall be sitting here perfectly still, but of course you won't know that because your eyes will be closed. I promise you I won't be moving at all, not even for that persistent itch, except when I'm moved to ring the gong. Okay? So, if you'd like to set yourself up for the meditation, close your eyes and we'll begin. The mindfulness of breathing. So now it's time for the tea break. See you later.
Put some away.
Can't hear you. Okay, welcome back. Last night I was in Bristol. I was at the Bristol Buddhist Centre giving a talk on solitude. And I was speaking about solitude because it's been an important part of my life. I've spent quite a bit of time in solitude. And I've done many solitary retreats. And in the course of the evening last night, I recounted something that happened to me on a particularly long solitary retreat. And that was that after about, well, in fact, almost from the beginning of my retreat, every time I sat down to meditate, I fell asleep. And I kept falling asleep. Every session of meditation, it was like this, except there was always one session, usually during the afternoon, which is generally not the best time to meditate, by the way, when my mind was completely alert and alive and bright. And this went on for about 4 or 5 months. And eventually, I started asking myself the question, why do I keep on doing this? Not why do I keep on falling asleep, but why do I persist in the meditation? I was getting quite fed up about it, to be quite honest. But anyway, after mulling it over for quite a long time, I concluded that the reason why I persisted was because I had faith in what I was doing. I had faith in the meditation practices. I had faith in the purpose of what I was doing on that solitary retreat. And then after about 4 or 5 months, I can't remember exactly how long it was quite a long time, the whole thing just shifted. And it never recurred throughout the rest of the retreat. So reflecting more about that, well, in fact, reflecting about the whole retreat, I sort of explored this idea of the faith that I had in the practices that I was doing. I wanted to go a bit deeper with that as well. And because, for example, if you go into a solitary retreat, especially a long one, there are times when you really want to just throw the towel in and get up and go. There's one of the greatest yogis or meditators in Tibetan tradition was a yogi or a Tibetan Buddhist called Milarepa. And he spent most of his life in solitude. He meditated in caves all over Tibet, especially in the high mountains. He had a number of caves he used in the Everest region on both sides of the Nepal-Tibet border. But anyway, when he first went into solitude, he was bricked up in a cave so he couldn't get out. But after about a year, and he's supposed to be there, his teacher told him to stay there for 3 years. After about a year, he pulled down the wall to go out because he'd started to feel lonely. He'd started to feel that he was missing his fellow disciples, who were living, all of whom were living with his teacher. And he wanted to see them, and he wanted to, he wanted to see his teacher, Marpa, again. When he got to the place where Marpa was staying, his home, with his disciples, Marpa wasn't very happy and told him to go straight back to the cave. So that, if you're doing something serious, like, you tell all your friends you're going away for 9 months on a solitary retreat, if you come out after 4 or 5 months, you're going to feel a right twit. It would be deeply humiliating. So I had my Milarepa moments where I felt I just wanted to be in company. I was yearning at times for company, for my friends, almost inevitably, really. But I knew that I was not going to do what Milarepa did. I wasn't going to give up. I mean, admittedly, he'd been in retreat for a year. I was only been in retreat for a few months. But eventually, I realised again that this was a matter of faith. That I believed in what I was doing. I believed in the meditation that I was doing. I was doing a lot of meditation. But of course, there was this other consideration that if I did leave early, that would be deeply humiliating. I mean, some of my friends would never, they'd tease me mercilessly when I got back. I just knew that would happen. However, that was a minor motivating factor, I'm sure. So, if you want to succeed at meditation, you need faith. You need faith in the practices. Now, of course, when you first start meditating, you're not going to have that faith. Why should you? Because you've not had much experience of the practices. You take them on trust from us, presumably, those of you who come here. You learn to meditate at the London Buddhist Centre, and we say how wonderful the practices are and how effective they are. But then you might find that, well, they're not quite doing for you what you thought or what you expected they would do. But nonetheless, if you persist, you'll probably find that after a while you'll begin to realize that the practices do have a strong effect. Maybe not always, well, certainly not always at the time of meditation, but outside the practice of meditation. That you feel their benefits. That you realize, for example, that you become more aware. You become more aware of yourself, you become more aware of the environment, you become more aware of other people. And, of course, if you're doing the Metta practice as well, you may realize that you become a bit less irritable, a bit kinder, a bit more generous, a bit less stingy or whatever. This is how these practices work. Well, it's one way, at least, in which they work. Which brings me on to the purpose of meditation. I quite often speak about this, but it's really important to understand that, meditation is not about health and well-being. I hope I'm not shocking anybody. I mean, it's not that meditation is not going to help your health. It might help your health, especially your mental health. It's unlikely, I would say, to affect your physical health. If it does, I haven't noticed. I've been living with a cancer for 8 years, and it hasn't stopped the cancer from spreading. And I've been meditating persistently for well over 50 years now. So it doesn't help in that kind of way. When I first came along, I wanted to meditate. I wanted to learn to meditate because I thought it would give me peace of mind. Well, it didn't. But I wasn't disappointed because I found something else. What meditation really does, if you persist with it, if you have faith in what you're doing, is it will radically alter you over a long period of time. And the longer you practice, the longer you engage in these practices, the more that will become obvious to you. It took me several decades to really twig this. I'm a bit thick. I didn't go to university like probably all of you lot. I don't have the benefits of an education, but not that kind of education. But anyway, eventually I realized that, the meditation I've been doing for, let's say, 4 decades, Shame to admit it, it took me that long. The meditation had actually affected me very, very positively indeed. And it actually radically altered me. So this is why we meditate. It's not to have good meditations, although they're very, very welcome when they arise and when they do happen. They do occasionally happen, even to me. But it's not why I meditate. I meditate in order to become a better and yet better human being. Hopefully a thoroughly, radically changed one. So that's the purpose of Buddhist meditation, at least. So I thought I'd just start off with that this evening and see if you have any questions about it. And so I'm going to open up the floor for questions, please, not statements, nothing like that. It's too many of us for a discussion. But if you have any questions about any of that, fire away. Yes?
In what ways did it radically alter you?
Well, it altered the whole course of my life, for a start. I used to work in the theatre. I used to be an actor. And mind you, I had had enough by the time I was 24. I wanted to get out. But it gave me a much bigger vision than working in the theatre as an actor. And it wasn't just about me, too. It was about other people. And I've lived and worked, I've lived in this movement. I've worked for the movement most of my life. And that's taken me all over the world, actually. I've done a lot of teaching in India, for example. I never would have imagined when I was younger that would even remotely interest me. Frankly, when I first started going to India, I hated going because it was pretty tough. But because I had a major responsibility throughout the movement, I had to go, and I gradually learned to love it. I miss India very badly because I can't actually go anymore, but I really didn't enjoy it to start with. I reacted to, well, the discomforts that I had to put up with. The kind of discomfort that it's difficult to imagine sometimes in the West. I mean, try doing an 11-hour bus ride in central India on a state bus, which is basically like tin cans on wheels, packed full, and your knees are jammed against the seat in front, and you're lucky to have a seat in the first place. You're travelling alone like that for 11 hours. It's pretty tough. I didn't like it, but I think it was good for me because it actually that kind of experience is character building. I've had loads of experiences like that, but that's why initially I found it very difficult and I hated going. But I fulfilled my duty. I fundamentally believed in what I was trying to do because I could see the way that Buddhism was helping to transform huge numbers of people in India at that time, and hopefully will continue to do so. So that's just gives you an idea. It's also transformed my whole inner life. I suppose I feel much more generally emotionally positive, for example. Rarely these days do I slip into negative mental states. I would not like to say that I never do. That would be claiming too much. But it doesn't happen very often. And as soon as they arise, I tend to get out of them. Yeah? Big answer to big question. Yeah.
What do you think in terms of your practice being transformational? What do you think in terms of the way that you practice has kind of what decisions have you made about the way that you practice that's kind of facilitated that?
Well, I don't think I've ever thought very much about it. It was just pretty obvious to me what I needed to do, and we're all, as a group of us, if you like, well, a whole community of us doing it together. And I don't know why, but I never thought about things. Bhante Sangharashit, the founder of this movement, wanted us all to do an annual solitary retreat of at least 1 month every year. And I took that at face value and I tried to do that. I haven't always been able to do it, by the way, but most years I've managed to do that. So that's what he was recommending. So I put it into effect. I trusted him. In a sense, I had faith in him. I knew him very, very well. And he was my teacher. I believed in him. So if he said that was, what he expected of us, I'd do it. So I didn't always think about it. It was a combination of faith in what I was doing, faith in him, faith in his teaching, faith ultimately in the Buddha, and the effectiveness of his teaching that that got me there. It's not that I didn't think or that I can't think. I can actually. I hope you've noticed, but I've never quite approached it like that.
Like you doing the month-long solitaries, and then what other things were you doing?
Well, I was doing meditation and mindfulness of breathing. I was teaching a lot. I set up a centre in Norwich. I was leading retreats. I was working full-time for the movement, and I was asked to do things, so I did them. If something needed to be done, I'd try and do what I could. Yeah?
You mentioned that meditation doesn't give you peace of mind. Is it?
It didn't give me peace of mind.
I mean, doesn't give on general peace of mind. Is it because you gain more awareness of yourself and others, and that can give a little bit of deeper reflection of disturbance, I guess?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Also,
Can I just answer that first of all? I wouldn't like to say that meditation doesn't give you peace of mind per se. I think that some people probably do find peace of mind through meditation. I didn't happen to experience that, but I think it gave me something much bigger in the end. Okay, so that was the first question. Yeah.
So you get more self-awareness, awareness of others, and then so what is the biggest fruit of meditation?
The biggest
fruit of meditation.
What?
Fruit, like the biggest advantage.
Advantage. Oh, right. Sorry, my hearing isn't as good as it used to be. Even though I've got my hearing aids in. Mine was growth was the word. No, I've got it wrong again.
Fruit, like apple.
Fruit! I got you. At last. Okay. Bear with me. It's not always easy when you're this old. Fruit. The greatest fruit. I'm not sure I could easily summarise that. I've had so many benefits, including a lot of friendships which have lasted over 50 years now. And I've always been gaining new friends. I've made a lot more friends here since I came to the London Buddhist Centre, back to the London Buddhist Centre 10 years ago. And I hope to continue to do so until I die. I don't know, the biggest fruit. I think I understand more clearly what it is I'm actually trying to do. I don't just mean intellectually, but sort of I have an intuition, a greater intuition about what I'm doing and its significance. Things like that. It's very difficult to say, clearly, what has been the greatest fruit. There's so much, but if you like, it's just opened my life wide open, and I appreciate so many things that I wouldn't have done when I was much younger. That sort of thing as well. It's broadened my view of life. Liam, you've been dying to get a question in.
I was wondering if you could maybe explain a little bit of the qualities of the faith in your practice.
Okay.
Because I'm particularly interested, is it possible in that way for the faith to become a bit like stoicism or a bit stiff, a bit kind of like your going through the motions, or you're sort of, is it faith or is it sort of stubbornness or something?
Well, I'm a stubborn person, but I don't think it's just that. I mean, there's an emotional component to all this. You just respond to something from the heart. That's what an emotion is as well. It's actually an emotion is something which moves you into action. And I've led a very active Buddhist life. So there's obviously emotional engagement with that. And when we think of faith, that is the primary element. But in a Buddhist context, it's not the only element. It's also balanced by, by wisdom. It has to be, actually, at least in terms of a capacity for rational thought. It's not a faith in the sort of manner of just believing in something blindly or anything of that sort, and all the sort of everything that goes along with a blind faith in religion, which is usually not very pretty. You have sufficient awareness to look back over your experience, and you can see the benefits you gained. So therefore, it builds your confidence, to use a different word, in what you're doing. I mean, I deliberately wanted to use the word faith because I know that for many people it's a word that they don't feel comfortable with. But I don't think we need to. I mean, for example, in this country, at least the male half of the population, and probably quite a few women as well, have very great faith in the English national football team and get very excited, overexcited actually, when they start playing in a major competition. And suddenly they have belief in the English national football team again, that this year is their year. They forget history. And don't forget what Winston Churchill said, those who forget history are doomed to relive it. And so the tears flow unexpectedly because people have forgotten, because they've got this blind faith, this irrational faith in this team. So, there's a lot of faith out there heading in all sorts of strange directions. But you try to, it's part of human life. You can't live life without faith, actually. It's not a specifically, let's say, religious virtue. There is such a thing as secular faith, too. People have faith, all sorts of faith in ideas, which sometimes are rather silly, it seems to me. But I think that faith in a Buddhist context is a balanced kind of faith because it's got these components of reason and reflection on experience. It's not just blind faith. So sorry, I don't know whether I've actually answered your question or not. Is it? Oh, that's right. One of the questions was because there were several questions in what you asked. Is it, kind of stoical? I've been accused of stoicism to some degree. I think unfairly. I'm not a stoic, but one of the things that I've learned is patience. And the Buddha once said famously that the highest form of asceticism, that is to say, self-torture, is self-torture. That's not the best word, but how would you define asceticism?
Self-denial.
Sorry?
Self-denial or self...
Well, no, not self-denial, self-mortification in some way or other. But anyway, the highest form of asceticism is patience. You've only got to wait. I mean, you can even see it at your computer desk. A program is taking about 2 seconds longer than normal to load, and you start to feel irritated. Well, just bear with it. You need to have patience with these things. And we live in a very impatient society, partly because of institutions like Amazon Prime. You want something, you can get it straight away, at least the next day, and so on. Everything's on tap for us in a way that it would have been unthinkable when I was a kid, and even later than that. So I think one of the effects of that is to make people less patient than they used to be. I mean, why do you get impatient? Simply because a website isn't responding as quickly as you would like it to. But it seems to me from my own experience and also talking with others, it's a very common experience. So I think there's an element of patience in faith, if you like. All these virtues that we speak about are sort of interwoven. But it's not Stoicism, and of course, any practice you engage with can become a bit stiff or a bit dull, a bit dead. But then you have to find a way of reinvigorating it. And usually what we tell people, if this happens with meditation, for example, is go on retreat. And that usually works. You go away for a weekend even, and you come back feeling so much more refreshed and so much more inspiration for practicing meditation. If you go on a longer retreat for a couple of weeks or whatever, this, even more so. Yeah.
Can I ask about the solitary retreats? To what extent do you think that advance your meditation practice in comparison to, say, not doing it in solitude, but with other people?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure that I could answer that, but I mean, the main purpose of a solitary retreat is to get to understand, to know yourself and understand yourself better. That's why you're alone, because normally very often we experience ourselves through our interactions with other people. In a context like that, you can't. There's nobody else around. There's just you, the environment, the animals, and your mental states. So that's the main purpose for a solitary retreat. I think in order to make the best use of a solitary retreat, it's advisable to do quite a bit of meditation, certainly in the early days of practice. I mean, I don't do so much meditation when I do a solitary retreat nowadays. I just tend to sit and absorb whatever's going on in my mind or in the environment. I mean, you need to do meditation. You need to meditate if you get into unskillful mental states. I mean, for example, on my first solitary retreat, at the very beginning, I experienced I was in a very anxious state, and it built eventually over a period of about a week to intense fear, and then it resolved. And then I got bored, and that was worse. Because at least something exciting was happening. When all that fear was sort of afflicting me. But now I'm just bored. And boredom is really difficult to deal with. So, that's how it works. That's how the solitude works. But certainly in my early solitary retreats, I did a lot of meditation. And in fact, I've done that really right up until the last 10 years. I don't feel that I need to do so much meditation these days in solitude. If I notice I'm getting into a not very positive mental state, then I'll certainly do something about it, and that will probably mean doing a little bit more meditation. But generally, that doesn't no longer seems to be necessary for me. Yeah. Anyway, we need to do some more meditation. That's why you're here. Hopefully, that's giving you a bit more faith in what you're doing, and we better get on with it. So we're just going to do the mindfulness of breathing again. I'll ring the 4 stages, and that'll be all for this evening. So closing your eyes, make any final adjustments you need to make, and remember, just try to sit perfectly still. still sitting as for meditation, letting go of all conscious effort, just sitting. So that's all for this evening, but two little requests before you go, the usual two. Just to ask if you could help us put back all the cushions and mats before you go. And secondly, if you've not made a donation, but would like to do so, there should be someone on the desk at reception with a card reader, and you'll be able to do one then. We do depend for the continuation of the centre upon your generosity. All of us who teach here do so because we love doing it, not because we get paid, because we don't. So if you can help in that way, it'd be great. Okay, so that's all for this evening, and I wish you all a pleasant journey back home.